having shared your story. And we're now going to go on with today's agenda. We're going to talk with point0.com. Uno Cero. It is one of the blogs that is more important in Latin America regarding consumer technologies. Uno Cero. They had their content pages on premise, on local servers, and they began to see the opportunity to go up to the cloud, and then they worked with Rackspace to see how that migration is done under one condition: to have 100% availability the entire time, because their business is the content they publish, and they can not be not available. So I'm going to show you a video and show you a presentation of Uno Cero so you can learn a little bit about who they are. In this business, sometimes you have launches or immersions with applications that represent a significant increase in the workload. But since we've worked with Rackspace, we haven't noticed that. We simply consult the numbers. We see there were several peaks, and automatically the system responds in a comprehensive manner. In our old solution, it was impossible to do that. And in fact, sometimes we saw mistakes, like, for example, I cannot upload the page, and there were many, many simultaneous requests. We offer daily, fresh information on the technology consumer world and for those Spanish-speaking languages. After many years of doing this, we began to work with typical solutions for hosting with dedicated servers. And after a few months, of course, these become obsolete. We see that certain things do not respond like they did before. We have to change it for a new one. So we decided to go to a virtual solution. The biggest challenge was to be able to continue with the service without the visitor realizing a change had been made, and at the same time optimizing the load times with the open source that we have at the site. So we designed an interesting strategy to migrate from the database, and after a certain time we were able to make the switch from the old solution to the new Rackspace services. In fact, we didn't realize that there was a bit of pressure, of tension here in the office, but we had been working weeks before, hand in hand with Rackspace team. And we're now in the new platform. It all went very smoothly. Well, I now leave you with the founder and CEO of unocero.com, Javier Matuk. I want to thank Rackspace for having invited me to talk to you a little bit about what we have been doing behind the screen. And you don't see it, but there is a timer here, so I'm going to go a little bit fast so that I don't take away time from anybody else. Have you visited unocero.com? Please raise your hands. This is the acid test. Please lie. Raise your hand if you haven't. Well, not many. Well, we began to host and place pages on the internet in 1994, before Rackspace even existed. And this was our first page. We offered services to connect to the internet. We were a new ICP, as it was known at the time, and this is just a sample of what we were doing in 94, 95. And then the people from Rackspace asked me to send them the slide, but in high resolution. But HD did not exist at the time, HR. So this is history, huh? And then we sold it in the year 2000, and we did not look at every customer, connecting them to internet. Obviously, we began working with a modem at the 54K, the maximum speed, and then we migrated to this other adventure with a site called Matuk.com. It was a personal site hosted, I don't know where, I can't even remember. And then this continued to evolve, Matuk.com. It had more content. until we decided to create the information side. Why? Well, because there was a lot of information. There was tremendous energy for personal technology after PCs, before the smartphones. And we began working with this around 2005, 2006. The site was hosted by someone I can't even remember. And then, fortunately, our daily efforts, our daily work, and this possibility of giving new, fresh information in a passionate way, because if you're not impassioned about this, you really cannot go on for long. So this led us to continue to grow, to have more visitors to our page, more comments, advertisers, of course. If not, we wouldn't be here. And then we began to go through growing pains. When we changed names, we took away the last part of the name and left it a little bit more institutional. And there the problems began. Well, we would be invited to a radio show to talk about something. When Twitter began, and we would go there and it would say, go into the page called matuk.com or 10.com. And immediately, about 5-10 minutes later, depending on what radio show we were on, the site would give us a very elegant and attractive error, error 500 or error 5, and we had no idea what it was. It would take us time to figure it out. We would come out of the program, of the radio program, and say, hey, our site is not working. That was the high engineering we had at the time, and the day it collapsed completely. Marta de Baile, you know Marta de Baile, the broadcaster and businesswoman in radio, and we get along well with her. We went to her program and we decided to do a streaming when it's not like Periscope today. So Marta said, yes, go into the site. I'm there. I think it took at the most 10 seconds before the whole site collapsed. And what happens? Well, everybody does poorly. Everybody does poorly. The camera was there, Marta was there, we were there, but nobody could see anything. At the time, we did not really understand the significance of having a solution or a more rational system, a hosting system that would be able to take these kind of situations, because in the news world, in particular with technology, nothing is really scheduled. Yes, we have big events, but opportunities like today, hey, come to the radio, come to TV, all of that is usually not scheduled, and we need to have an infrastructure that truly supports this. So the site continued to grow and evolve. Today, this is more or less what it looks like. Of course, the design changes are important. You have to keep it new. And currently, more than 65% of those visiting are from cell phones. That's a very interesting piece of data, because if the trend in statistics is not lying to us, within a few months, it's going to be about 80% of all visits from cell phones. So then the desktop, of course, is still important, but we're still focusing all our efforts on it being a more interesting solution from a cell phone. More than a year ago, we faced the challenge of how to migrate our old infrastructure, which was a dedicated server. I don't know the name of the company in the United States, and I say I don't know because we have a partner who takes care of all that, and migrate to a solution that would enable us to continue to work without having to worry about the peaks in particular. And then I found old friends in Rackspace, and we began to talk about what options there were to migrate. There was a lot of skepticism in our office about virtual solutions. Why? Well, because we've really been working hard for years, and we had our computer center from the old days. We would go to the computer stores in the part of town, and we would create patches. A Cisco router cost quite a bit. It was investment that meant several months of work. So finally, we made the decision and say, okay, let's go ahead. Let's go forth. Let us change from a solution that we have been patching and modifying, a traditional server that would last about 7 to 8 months at the most. And finally, we went to a virtual solution. So what happened here? Well, I'm not going to talk about something I'm not an expert in, but a talk between one engineer and another engineers. They got together. They began to talk in HTML. That's where the romance began. And then it ended up with some very weird things that I don't really know much about. The thing is, they understood themselves. They understood what they were saying. So in about 2 weeks, because we were not really in a hurry, we began to plan the migration. We told Rackspace, this is what we have. Go into our server, look at everything we have, and go for it. And Rackspace said, fine, I have no problem with that. And it happened. An instantaneous change, an immediate change that I'm going to tell you about. Fortunately, we use this system, which is basically a standard for certain complex levels of sites. So the challenge was to migrate the database from one place to another. The first solution was take everything, take it where you have to take it, put it into Rackspace, and make sure it continues to work. That seemed very easy, but I said, no. Since we have a new home now, we're going to take only what we truly need. So we cleaned up the house. We did house cleaning. We looked into a lot of details, and that is what, the moment that the DNSs were updated, people continued to navigate, to browse, and we left a site for certain routers. But the thing is, anyway, we have been navigating with no problem at all, understanding the virtual world, understanding concepts like, for example, automatically raise your load. If tomorrow they invite us to talk to someone and we talk about something that is on the site, we now know that the configuration will be able to take those peaks so that they are able to see what is happening. Now, if you go into a page, whatever, and it doesn't respond, well, first of all, if it doesn't respond, you immediately want to forget about it. Bye-bye. If it's an airline, you want to buy a ticket and it doesn't reply, you have to do it again. But a consultation site like this, if there's a mistake, you just forget about it. You discard it. And then another important thing is speed. If you are waiting for it to upload and upload and upload, you're going to get exasperated, and in your subconscious, this browsing, you know that page is very slow and you're not going to go back to it. From 2013, since we have a precise record of visits, in some months it goes up and down. These are real data. We have about 1 million visitors a month, and then some pages like 2.5 or 3 million. But the fact is that I believe one of the best experiences we have had hosting, I use hosteando in Spanish, hosting. We now forget about this. We've gotten to a point where we can forget about all this, and this is very important for any of you. Of course, it depends on what company or department you're in. But for us now, to not have to be concerned or worries about whether the server is working, whether it's responding, if there was any event in which there was a peak and many people visited and you wanted to continue to operate, to not have to worry about all that is really a crucial aspect of the offer that this service gives you. And we know that everything we need in order to grow is just a click away, literally a click away. The first time we created a virtual server in the San Antonio offices, some of us were there, and somebody said, okay, let's make a server. Okay, how many gigas, how many RAMs? Before, we used to take weeks to do that physically. But of course, that was the old staff. But now many virtual solutions like these that we are using work in a transparent fashion. Ugo, who is around here, he's in charge of our systems. We are a large corporation somewhat, or rather our scale is what is large. There's a person in charge of our systems. We're only 15 people, but that person now, he used to have a bad time. Now he has a bad time in a different way because we're asking him for more things. And of course, 24/7 reply times, all those things that have to do with the display of our news. All of that usually works smoothly, and sometimes we have contact with people from Rackspace for specific questions because you know that the language of engineers is very different. They can talk about themselves and there's no problem. And you who are devoted to other aspects of the business, you can continue to function, to operate without being concerned about these old programs. Because before you would say, oh, the server only has so many gigas left in the disk, so okay, delete here, do this. You just kept putting patches and everything would get to a limit, and then you would have to migrate and be ready so you could continue to go. So this is mainly what I wanted to tell you. I will be here in the afternoon in the panel session if you have any questions, but thank you so much to the Rackspace people for having invited me. Thank you, Javier. That was excellent. Thanks for sharing your experience with us and keeping us informed about what is happening in the technology world.